Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, this is Books of Genghis Khan, and today I have for you my mid-month check-in where I'll wrap up everything I've been reading over the last 2 weeks. So it has been a great start to the month. I just finished Jade Shards by Fonda Lee. So this is the newly released little story collection of 4 short stories. So each one was about an hour of listening, and I had fun once again listening to Andrew Kashino, who I've been getting more and more attached to as a narrator the more I listen. And yeah, each one was about an hour long, or probably like 30 to 40 pages. So definitely just for actual short stories. And for big Greenbone saga fans, these should be delicious little morsels. So they are all prequels featuring characters, mostly main characters, from the trilogy. And really, 3 out of the 4 were very impactful and felt like a really worthy addition to the series. The last story, unfortunately, just seemed tacked on and kind of unnecessary and unimpactful, and I wish it was not the one that was included last, because that was the last thing I'll have read in this whole series, and kind of an anticlimactic note to go off on. You can't really spoil these short stories, but if you don't want to know kind of the characters that are in them or the premise, you could skip ahead to the next timestamp, but I just want to chat about each one a little bit really quickly. So the first one followed Andin's mom, and we don't see this character in the trilogy, so it's cool to get a really kind of deep insight into who this character was at a few different points in their life, and they were one of Aitmata's only friends at school, and so we usually just in this story jump ahead to when this character interacts with Mata over the years, kind of at school, and then later on when she is living on her own and has had Andin and is raising a baby Andin. And we get some insight into Mata that's really cool, and a side of her that we don't see in the trilogy. But really the star of this was Andin's mom, and just seeing this character was really impactful for me. So great start to the collection with that. And then the second story kept that going with another really engaging story that followed Lan, who is the kind of assistant pillar to his grandfather, Kalsen, who's just as much of a jerk in this as he was later on. And he's dealing with the pressure of this, and also the story is really about what led to Lan adopting Andin into the Kal family, and the interactions between Lan and child Andin were just so sweet, so nice to see on the page, and heartbreaking as well with what ended up happening with Andin's mom. And I can't remember that character's name, so I wish I could remember. But the third story was probably my favorite, and this one featured 2 POVs from the trilogy, Hilo and Wen, and really just explored their initial courtship and what led to them getting together and their kind of initial days together as a couple. And this was just fantastic, 2 of my favorite characters, and just a fun look into them before they were the couple that we see during the trilogy already. So just an absolutely awesome set of 3 stories there. So 3 out of 4 were big hits, which made this whole collection very worth it. And the 4th one was okay, I didn't mind it, but it followed Shay, and I only learned after that this was the only story that Fonda Lee wrote new for this collection release, and that she said after that it was the only one that really was plot-focused, and for a plot-focused story, there was nothing that I cared about in this plot. Nothing felt interesting or surprising in any way, and it didn't really have much of character impact either. So I wish that the story was not the last one. It's the last final note that I am going off on with this whole series that I've loved so much. So I would highly recommend, if you are coming to these stories as the last bit of fiction in the series, that you just jump ahead to this 4th story. It doesn't matter if you read them out of order. Maybe at least the first 2 should go in order chronologically, but it doesn't matter when you read the other 2. And so read this Shay first and you just get it out of the way, because I wish she'd done something a little more with it. Like, we see the initial kind of how she got involved with the Espenians as a spy, but why not do a little time jump to when she kind of put away her green and had a conflict with her family and then moved off to Hispania. Like, we could have ended with everyone in the family on the page and had a really kind of impactful moment there, but instead it just kind of ends very anticlimactically as she becomes a spy for the Hispanians, and just a strange choice for this final note to end on. But overall, I was very happy with the collection, and I think Greenbound fans will really love it and have a great time and be thankful that we just get these little prequel stories. Also, I've been dipping my toes back into some nonfiction with The Rise of Athens by Anthony Everett. So I saw that Michael Page is the audiobook narrator, one of my favorites, and I thought, okay, it's been a long time since I studied ancient Greek history in college. Let me refresh my memory. And the history of kind of Greece and Athens is so interesting and wild that I've just been loving going through this. And if you're interested at all, this audiobook is fantastic. And it's a really just engaging, fast-paced, very digestible history of Athens, with a lot of getting this, the source from Herodotus, who we don't know how reliable Herodotus is, so it feels like it could be mythology or fiction, but a lot of this we're making our best guesses at with the few sources we have. And the Persian Wars are so fascinating, and how the Greeks ended up victorious through those, and so I've been having a good time just kind of steadily making my way through that audiobook. The other books that I finished have all been part of the Temeraire series by Naomi Novik, and I had been going through the first 3 books. So I finished the first 2 last month, and then I was just going to read the third one, Black Powder War, since that would finish out this beautiful omnibus of the first 3 books that I got from Grim Oak Press. I love the slipcase and this beautiful leather-bound edition, and so I was going to just finish it out because I had just recently gotten this and wanted to make use of it. But the first arc of the series of 9 books is really divided up into 2 main plot arcs, and I finished book 3, Black Powder War, which is so solid, and I was gonna veer off, maybe start another series, but I just couldn't bring myself to leave this arc, so I just had to continue. It's been 5 years since I read this the first time. I had forgotten a lot of the details. I knew kind of the broad strokes of where we were going, but I was just so in suspense and engaged yet again with the story that after I finished Black Powder War, I had to jump right into Empire of Ivory. So to back up a little bit, with Black Powder War, if you don't want to know anything about the series, I'll try to be spoiler light on kind of what's happening in these books. But if you don't want to know anything, I'd fast forward or veer away from this. But in Black Powder War, we have to travel back to Europe from China, where Lawrence and Temeraire are, and they get sent on an urgent mission to kind of receive a few dragon eggs that Britain had bought from the Ottomans in Istanbul. And they have to travel overland from China to Istanbul, and so we get this whole first part of the book is this really cool travel sequence through China and then through the kind of deserts and mountains of Central Asia to get to Istanbul. And then once we get to Istanbul, there's some complications getting the eggs, which is a really fun stopover. And then Lawrence and Temeraire find themselves in Prussia, dealing with Napoleon's invasion of Prussia, and that is the Black Powder War of the title. We get to spend a lot of time with that kind of war going on, and how that plays out with Napoleon's dragon strategies and tactics, and it plays out differently from how it happened in real life, but maybe not so differently in the end. And that was just a really cool, grim kind of long battle sequence that Lawrence and Temeraire kind of just get sucked into as they are traveling, trying to get back to Britain, but kind of get stopped there along the way and want to help out that allied army of theirs. And so that is what most of the Black Powder War is about. And that transitions into Empire of Ivory, where Lawrence and Temeraire get sent on an urgent mission back to Africa, back to Cape Town, where they had passed through on their way to China. And there's something very important that they have to track down there. This gets them sucked into an adventure in Africa, where we see in the kind of in the Victoria Falls region in like southern Central Africa, we see this whole kind of empire that does not exist in real life, but because of the way the dragons are integrated into society there, and they've kind of formed this really cool empire along with some human tribes, and they have a interesting adventure there, and results in some major new world and political kind of events, shifting things differently from how they ever went in real life. And this also leads to an incredible kind of character's ethical dilemma that Lawrence faces, and then the next book is dealing with the fallout of that in such an interesting way. So this book, Victory of Eagles, I gave all of the 4 Temeraire books 5 stars when I first read them. They were 5-star reads again. I just got so sucked in to this story. The friendships, the companionship bonds between Lawrence and Temeraire and other dragons, and between Lawrence and some friends and some other officers. They're all so comforting to spend time with. And I find the plotting in this first arc of the series to be so tight and suspenseful, with a lot of thematic coherence as well through these first 5 books. And it culminates in one of my favorite books of all time. I think there are 3 extended sequences that happen in Victory of Eagles that are 3 of the most memorable kind of sequences from the entire 9-book series for me. And they all happen in this book. It is extremely climactic and heavy. And this is the first book we get a Temeraire POV, and it's wonderful. We get Temeraire interacting with just a lot of dragons kind of on their own, away from humans. And the way that they kind of have determined their own kind of social order between them is so fascinating. The way they interact is so interesting and fun. And the way that Temeraire also is trying to stir kind of some rebellion and revolutionary feelings and ideas about gaining dragons their rights and privileges and freedoms. That part of the book is so great. And then we move to a sequence where Napoleon is invading the island of Britain, and he's able to do this in this version of reality using dragons that in a way that he just was never able to invade in real life. And so we're dealing with an invasion of the island, and that is just incredibly suspenseful. Yeah, there is so much that was just gripping that was happening throughout this book. And because of the kind of moral decision that Lawrence made in the previous book, because of what he felt was right and true, and really it was a joint decision between him and Temeraire, he's dealing with a lot of kind of social isolation in this book, and that was just adding this heaviness to it. This book is so dramatic. My God, it is amazing in every way. I highly recommend trying out Temeraire in the first book. If you like it, I think that's a good indication of kind of what you'll get throughout. Book 2 starts the kind of travels, and then this finishes out the first arc. And I can see why a lot of other people think the series goes on too long, and that there's some books that meander following this. But I do think after such an impactful book, a series reset that we get with the next book was a nice change. But it would have been a really bold choice for Novik to end it here, even though the overall Napoleonic Wars didn't come to a close. I mean, she could have changed things, so they could have. But even just ending where it did, like the last scene, the last line, so good. And we could have just had a really tight 5-book series. That might have been a stronger choice for her than to continue. But I loved the characters and the world building so much for this series that I'm happy that it goes on for 4 more books, because I just love spending time with Lawrence and Temeraire and traveling to new places and seeing how dragon culture is different and humans relate to dragons differently in different continents and places. And so I really enjoyed the last arc of the series, and I'm looking forward to rereading that. I'll take a break now for some other things, but man, was the first 5-book arc of this series just completely and utterly engaging for me on reread. And I did a lot by audio because Simon Vance is doing these audiobooks. He's amazing with them. So if you like audio, you like Simon Vance, can't go wrong with these audiobooks. And just couldn't recommend these first 5 books more. In terms of what I'm reading now, yesterday I started A Dance with Dragons. So this will finish out my journey with Song of Ice and Fire, reading things for the first time over this course of the last year. And I've already read Fire and Blood. Oh, actually, I got to read 2 more of the Dunk and Egg stories, so I have those to look forward to at least. But this prologue was wild, And this first Tyrion chapter, oh my god, so heavy. I am going to be going through this, I think, in fits and starts, kind of slowly, and because it's a giant book, and I don't think I need to rush through it, especially because I've watched all the show, so I kind of know generally what's going on. But I will be joining a buddy read for Adrian Tchaikovsky's Bearhead soon, in a couple days, so look forward to that, and then continue my Tawny Man trilogy buddy read right after that with Fool's Fate. So I'll probably be reading this over the course of, I would guess, about a month, and just making my way through it slowly. But man, what a good start. I am so psyched to finish out this giant last tome that Martin has delivered so far. So yeah, got that to look forward to, a bunch of other impactful reads. And if you have not seen my most recent videos on the channel about my countdown of my favorite audiobook narrators, check those out. I will be trying to get the next part of the list to you soon. So yeah, tell me what you've been reading over the last couple weeks, anything you're excited to try out of what I've gone through, and I'll catch you later.